Welcome back, you guys. This is the Art School Graduate Podcast. Today's guest is a powerhouse of creative intention. She is a DC based graphic designer, illustrator. Whether through visual design or motion graphics, her work is grounded in alignment, joy, and community. Let's welcome to the podcast, Ashley Fletcher. Ashley, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Justin. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be in conversation with you on this lovely Sunday.
Yes. So let's start from the beginning. Your creative journey is anything but typical. So, like, you grew up in a creative household, your mother being a hairstylist, your grandfather being a fine artist. Like, what were some of your earliest memories of making or being inspired by design?
Yeah, so I have a ton of memories of just exploration. So
Mhm.
my grandfather, he always had, and he actually passed last year, I think. It's been a year, but still, fresh. But so he still has a lot of his art materials.
Mhm.
He has his paintings, and he always just had things around the house, whether it be new, like I am a '90s baby, so we had like all these different types of pencils and
Yeah.
you'd have, like, a pencil that had all these different colors intertwined.
Mhm.
So my brother and I were always drawing or exploring, or they always him and my grandfather and my grandmother always had something new,
Mhm.
for us to explore. My mother being a hairstylist, I remember just being at the salon with her, watching her work, watching how, we held space for community as well in the salon and the different stories that were told, and also the magazines, the
Mhm.
Black hair magazines. There were so many different types of publications,
Mhm.
not just, Vogue, or you would have Jet magazine in Essence, but then you would have all these publications of hairstyle.
Mhm.
And a lot of them were locally based salons. So I was just always flipping through those as I'm, waiting for my mom to go to the next client or
Mhm.
finish up. And my grandmother also, she did home interiors crafts. So she was doing
Oh,
floral
nice.
bouquet on both sides of my family. They're
Mhm.
both pretty creative. And I spent a lot of time growing up in my grandmother's daycare where I helped her, and she was also always doing arts and crafts with her daycare. So there was always just some type of creativity happening. I also remember my grandfather's camera. He had like this like super like long lens camera.
Yeah.
I don't remember the type, but we would always explore. He had
Mhm.
binoculars. He had all these different things that he was creating with. So I was always kind of unconsciously maybe in
Mhm.
these explorative phases and seeing creativity, seeing entrepreneurship and what that
Mhm.
looked like. And so for me, as I later am exploring freelance in that journey, it was never a question to me that that wasn't possible for me.
Mhm.
Because the whole was surrounded by so many entrepreneurs. Um, so yeah, early on, always inspired by that. I also growing up in the MySpace era, of
Yeah.
course, and being surrounded by all these different ways to create and express yourself. So I really loved photography. I was really inspired by like an artist, Kesh. I believe she's still around and she's still creating, but she was really popular. And also there was a model, Agnes, I believe is her name,
Okay.
Dean. She was always in Vogue magazine, so I was, collaging and making clippings
Mhm.
and exploring all these magazines that my mom let me take from her salon, and I also took trips to the bookstore all the time, and I find even now the bookstore as, like, my kind of same place,
Yeah.
but being surrounded by all of these different ways that, maybe I didn't realize then were building up and opening my mind, to all these different ways that creativity exists. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
dope. Like, just I wonder what that was like to just wake up and just be surrounded by creativity constantly. That had to be like almost like a like eye-opening awakening where it's like any place you walked into, you probably were like, "Oh, someone's painting here. Someone's taking photographs here." Like that had to be dope to just experience, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm really grateful that my family, like, they encouraged that exploration, so
Mhm.
it was always like, "Here, try this, or it's not just like, oh, you're kind of siloed, they're siloed creating. My grandfather's like, here, I got this new camera. Like, oh, can we check it out? And he's letting
Mhm.
us explore this delicate camera that, as
Yeah.
when you're younger, you might drop it, you might, all these
Yeah.
things, but he is okay with like sharing that art
That's
with
dope.
us.
That's
So
dope.
yeah.
So let's talk about this time in school.
Yeah.
You mentioned yearbook had this huge impact on you. What about that experience like lit the spark for you to be like, you know what, design might be something I'm interested in?
Yes, so yearbook was so pivotal. Not only that I had a yearbook class, I was taking like a photography class. This was all
Mhm,
in high school at the time, and a ceramics class. And I was doing all of those kind of at the same time. So being
mhm,
able to explore photography and traditional aspects of photography. And then yearbook came along where I was exploring more digital photography and storytelling. And I got to go to a camp. It was actually at Gettysburg
mhm,
College. It was a yearbook camp, and then we got to create and learn about the process and look at other yearbooks, and it really opened my eyes to the printing process and what that looks like in print production, which I never, thought existed
mhm. Right.
in that way.
Mhm,
And yearbook for me, it was a way I'm often finding myself wearing many hats,
mhm,
and I enjoy that. And so yearbook was a way for me to explore that, building my confidence
mhm,
as well, trying out these different things. And so interviewing people, capturing moments and taking their photos, putting all that together to create a story with design. I
mhm,
had a really amazing yearbook teacher. Her name was Miss Small. She's still a graphic designer as well, but having those people, I think, in instructors or peers and elders really guiding you and help shaping your
mhm,
creativity, I think is so important, and giving you the free range to kind of try different things. And I think that's what I was able to do in yearbook. And I really loved it. I loved being on the production side and the back end
mhm,
side and leading a team to come up with these different stories. And so then I started to put two and two together of the magazine process and the yearbook process, because
yeah,
I'm just exploring magazines as, a piece of art that I'm
mhm,
analyzing the ads and the lighting and, the models and the different fashion that's
mhm,
happening in the layout. But then yearbook really allowed me to understand layout design and what that looks like and creating. And I'm pretty sure I used like Adobe for the first time then as well for yearbook. So
mhm.
yeah, I really love that, and kind of that just helped me build my skill set as a designer as I started to grow and explore. Yeah.
So, what gave you the courage to just full on dive into creativity and design? Like, what was there like a turning point, or was it just more of, you know what, I'm surrounded by this, let me just go for it? Or was it more of like, oop, light bulb came on, this is what I need to do, or this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I think it was a little mix of both. So when I was applying to schools, I was looking into photography and things like that. I think back then, you're always kind of comparing yourself and
Mhm.
the competition of getting into these various schools.
Yeah.
And so navigating what college looks like when you don't have a college fund for you to rely
Right.
on, that's
Hmm.
to say, oh, you can go to all the way to California, or I think I was looking at different schools, Miami, wherever.
Hmm.
They had that kind of photography and art. And so I said, well, maybe I'll go to this, try this school that was local. It was a little ways away, but still not too far from home. And I was doing marketing. I was doing business administration and marketing. I really love the marketing side, and I think as a designer, it's so good to kind of have that understanding of marketing and all the different aspects and learning the basics of communication.
Hmm.
But it was, I think, one too many math classes, and I was like, you know what? Why am I putting
Yeah.
myself through this? But also I always had that deep like yearning for the like Vogue magazine and all these magazines that I had been studying, and like, but really not understanding or having a title that a graphic designer is creating this. I thought it was
Mhm.
just photography, and you had your editorial and your writing side, but then realizing that a graphic designer is the one to put all these things together. I'm pretty sure I was just like doing some research and talking to like other classmates. I remember calling my mom up one day and I was like, Mom, I think I'm gonna switch my major to graphic
Yeah.
design. I don't know what that's gonna look like, but I really love magazines. I really love publications. Like I want to do that kind of stuff. And she's like, go for it. And that was the thing. I think I had audacity and just taking that leap. And that leap, I would have never known that leap then would have led me to the opportunities that I've had now and the career in art and design. So yeah, that was the leap. It was like, what am I doing taking these classes? I don't understand what the instructor's saying. I am not excelling in this at all. And also like I wanna do this other thing that I've been kind of self-teaching
Mhm.
being self-taught and just observing and absorbing. I wanna do it. Why not? Why not now? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. I have a similar story. I wanted to do sports medicine. I said, "Oh no, all these micro this and theory that and science." I was like, "Yeah." The one turning point was when I studied literally for a week for this science test. Girl, I got a C on it. I said, "Nope, can't do it. I'm going to design." I was doing.
Yeah.
I turned my back on design, and then it was like I knew you were gonna come back.
Right, right. We
Yeah.
were waiting for you. We were waiting for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Oh.
things, they get degrees, but they don't add up too well when
You
when
just it kills your confidence a little bit because you're like,
yeah,
I don't want to be like a mediocre, whatever,
yeah, yeah.
kinesiologist or artist. Like you really want the grade to represent the effort you put in. So,
Right.
that's where I was with it. So I totally get
Yeah.
when you're like, these math classes? Oh no, not for me. I'm
Yeah.
out.
And then it's people around you that are getting it, so you're like, "Yo, like, Haley, what's happening?" And of
Uh,
course, you didn't learn like everyone learns differently,
yes.
everyone's differently, and your instructors, I think, play a huge role in
Yeah.
your capacity to, take
Understand.
information.
Yep.
Yeah, understand and also like feel confident
Hmm.
in is the word. And yeah, so
I
that
know what you mean.
yeah.
So let's transition and talk about your work for a moment.
Mhm.
I mean, listen, your work has this beautiful blend of like intention, style, personality. Like, how do you make that magic actually happen?
I will say I was kind of going back and forth as I was preparing for this of kind of sharing this
Mhm.
right now in this current state of my career. I feel all over the place and I want to
Mhm.
be honest about that because when I started going through this, I had all of these like fears of or feelings of shame of feeling this way and
Mhm.
I have my master's degree, why don't I feel fully confident in my work or
Oh yeah.
why aren't things, you and then navigating entrepreneurship where there's so many things happening,
Mhm.
especially me biting down on having a full-time shop and full-time freelancers. There's
Mhm.
two different avenues that I love, but it comes with like I would call it maybe like a beautiful creative chaos.
Mhm.
As far as like how my creative process is.
Mhm.
But I'm so inspired by just everyday life around me. And really, when I had the opportunity to go to MICA, I was really able to explore and wanting to challenge how media portrays Black stories, Black
Mhm.
people. And that was kind of a driving force. And it's always like an anchor for me of how
Mhm.
are we telling narratives that are true to whoever we're trying to represent. It's not just representing one type of person or one identity of a person. It's thinking about people as a whole and community as a whole. And so I kind of lean with that. I love research and unfortunately both sides of my brain are constantly fighting of like I
Yep.
really love diving into research, but some
Mhm.
moms I have to let go of that research so that I can really dive into the play of creativity. And so depending on what I'm working on, a lot of my work is inspired by, Black culture, Black history. And so
Mhm.
diving into research and learning more, whether it be documentaries or movies. I just saw Sinners and it's had me on a great high of feeling good. And I think that's another example of like just the difference in how we're portrayed in storytelling, and doing it in an authentic way of talking to or learning from different communities, different people, and diving into those stories and also understanding it from a human centered approach and
Mhm.
less of a consumerism approach,
Got it. Yeah.
really taking the time to kind of go through and really understand
Mhm.
again who you're representing, who you're working with, what their goals are. And so I've been able to find a balance of using color to bring these different stories to life.
Okay.
I remember at one point in design, it felt like everyone was you're kind of afraid to use color in
Oh yeah.
Alex Banks. And so I really was just like, no, I love the way that this blends and thinking about growing up with Living Single and Martin
Yep.
and Different World, like all of these different cultural moments
Mhm.
they showcase color, they showcase the true authenticity of people. So I'm definitely inspired by all of that, all of the nostalgia of growing up,
Mhm.
all of the different experiences that life has brought. So yeah.
So let's touch on MICA and your experience there. How did that time there like help you understand what design could be?
Yeah, it really opened my eyes to, again, I think instructors are important, curriculum is important. There were so many skills that I didn't know that I needed to learn and
Mhm.
grow, and so having the opportunity to do that, but also having instructors that encouraged you to trust your voice and to
Mhm.
explore your own style, and they didn't necessarily push you onto a certain style or a certain
Mhm.
aesthetic or, of course, Swiss design and all of these things are in Baja and all of these things are prevalent, but they're not, we weren't necessarily, we were encouraged to explore our own
Mhm.
styles and then being able to take different classes. So I was finally able to take a publications class where I learned the process of beyond yearbook of fully putting together publications and ins and
Mhm.
outs and anatomy of all of that. I took a screen printing class to really get away from like some of the digital, but then understanding how digital and analog creation can happen. And it was just truly an area for me to explore and learn and really strengthen my fundamental skills in design.
Mm.
So yeah, definitely pivotal, and also just especially the first year program that I did, it boosted my confidence so much. And not to say that in like a not humble way, but it just gave me what I needed to really, really explore and have this boldness of, okay, I'm gonna make sure that I'm prioritizing highlighting
Mhm.
Black stories and Black people. And I don't need to have shame around that. And, at the same time learning and debunking how media and corporations like they, play their own different roles and how different stories are told and how like to combat that, I learned about Emory Douglas. Never had heard of him before that. And so really being able to teach myself, my own history, Black history of design,
Mhm.
and having the space again to create that. So
Mm.
yeah, Michael was so pivotal for that.
So what does your design process look like today, especially now that you've gotten the history of it from Micah? You've been kind of freelancing. So you and plus you cross many different platforms like photography, illustration,
Mhm.
and motion. So what does your process look like today?
Yeah. So again, I think it's a beautiful chaos.
Mhm.
And so some projects will start where things click right away. Some,
Mhm.
it takes some inspiration of pulling from different things and places, and having conversations with clients. I love really just taking the time to listen to what their needs are and kind of deciphering and being able to guide them and guide the project, because I think we don't designers don't necessarily get enough credit for being those liaisons of really deciphering what the client needs versus what they're saying,
Yeah.
and really guiding that. So yeah, it really depends. Photography, it's definitely kind of fallen on just having an eye
Mhm.
for choosing imagery that's telling that tells like the right story and really fits. and just exploring on my own, more so, and putting image together, and exploring with animation, and thankfully now with CapCut, and you're able to try all of these different methods that aren't just that are on your phone, and easily accessible. So yeah, it really depends. Sometimes I'll start with the project sketching on Procreate. I'm always sketching, especially like layout ideas and things like that. And I have ebbs and flows where I feel really creative and really ready to push the needle. And
Mhm.
sometimes I kind of stay on what I kind of am shedding the line of my comfort zone with certain
Yeah.
projects. And so it's really kind of finding that flow, and feeling trusting my inner voice of where the project leads, of, "Okay, you're getting a little too comfortable, let's push it here, let's see if we can take a break from, the actual, ideation phase, and maybe you need to, check out, maybe do a little bit more research
Yeah.
that can guide. Maybe you need to take a step away and go for a walk, or just get off the screen."
Mhm.
I've really been wanting to trust the process more of, and just finding that flow, I think is something that design school doesn't teach you. Finding that flow within your creative process of, sometimes you are like at this part where you aren't creating anything, and that's
Mhm.
okay. Sometimes you're at a part where you're building that up. Sometimes
Yeah.
we're really burnt out from not just creating, but
Yep.
everything else around you that also factors, like,
Mhm.
and impacts how we're showing up. And then also for me, one of the, I think, added factors of it being kind of a beautiful chaos is, in 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm.
I have been free of breast cancer, thankfully,
Yes.
since 2021. But I am dealing with the impacts of cognitive functioning. And so
Mhm.
I experienced a ton of brain fog. I'm kind of delayed with processing things. There's
Mhm.
a ton of different challenges, my memory, that I'm now facing, and I've been having to deal with the reality of that, and what does that look like for me and my creative process. And it's been tough, I will say that. It's been very
Mhm.
tough because you wanna show up in, like, that kind of excitement that I had in 2020 graduating, despite, all of the chaos, of course, that
Yeah.
was happening during that time, which also kind of can
Yeah.
dampen things. But
Yeah.
being really excited to really get your feet wet in the industry, and the opportunities that come from that, and the confidence, and then being faced with something like this that kind of knocks your confidence and your trust with yourself. So
Mhm.
it's definitely been a process of building that back up, and understanding that maybe I am a neurospicy gal now, and I need
Mhm.
to navigate tools that help me understand what that looks like for me. So
Mm.
yeah.
Well, first, let me say thank you, God, that you're cancer
Thank
free.
you.
That
Yes,
is
thank
that
you.
is huge to be free of that, because that is not a friendly thing. But I know I'm excited to hear that you're cancer free. I know that my listeners will be excited to hear that you're
Yeah.
cancer free. So let's stay here for a minute. How has it
Mhm.
helped, like, shape your creative process now? I mean, you shared with us some pretty vulnerable things about, cognitive understanding, sometimes having brain fog. Like, are there
Mhm.
any, uh, I would say, new tools or mediums that you're experimenting with lately that is like helping you in your, like, understanding and getting back to the process of like creating?
Mhm. I will say, cancer, I think in any form, whether it be breast cancer in any form, it's sometimes it can be a reminder, depending on how you interpret it, to slow down. And so in most cases, and it's not in our industry, we're
Mhm.
not slowing down. We're being told to create more, and
Yeah.
sharing designs out and ideas out. And this process, and this experience has allowed me to honor slowing down, honor when I'm having those ebbs and flows of creativity, and to be kinder to myself with that. And there has never, and with that understanding, I'm allowing more creativity to flow
Mhm.
within, be more, I don't wanna sound like a guru, but I'm being more in line with myself and my
Mm.
body, and
Yeah.
intuitively what that looks like. And unfortunately, I love my design industry, but that's not really a priority, the
Yeah.
output
Yep.
is more of a priority than the process. And so I've been called recently to love the process more and
Mhm.
give that more energy than I do necessarily the end result, and really honoring that. And I'm entering a space now where I want to be more vocal because at first I felt a lot of shame and fear of like even contemplating leaving design altogether. And
Mhm.
I want to share that because there might be somebody out there that's also thinking that with the state of the world, the state of the industry ever changing, you
Mhm.
might hit a wall where you're like, maybe this isn't for me. And I haven't found the right answer for that, but I
Mhm.
am finding again being back in line with myself, and honoring that creative process versus what the industry kind of wants us to pump out, allows me to kind of get back into more fulfilling work and ground myself,
Mhm.
into okay, what's not working here, what's working. I will say that I'm also into natural herbs and
Mhm.
supplements, so I've been using lion's mane supplements for kind of my nerve and memory and function and brain fog. So that's been really, really helpful. Reishi
Good.
mushrooms they also have spiked anxiety.
Mhm.
And so just the amount of stress that we experience in our day-to-day work, being able to have those supplements, help.
Mm.
I've also tried, prescribed medications too. They didn't work the best for me, in my situation, but yeah, definitely allowing myself to try different, medicinal, and holistic, wellness, and also breath work. I've been exercising again, which has been really helpful,
Mhm.
which you sounds very cliche, but it's definitely helpful as someone who's, sits at your desk in front of a
Yeah.
screen most of the day. It's good to take those walks. It's good to just step away
Mhm.
from the computer, step away from the emails.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and really find that balance.
So
Yeah.
so during this time, you are experiencing these things and you're learning, you're almost relearning a few things. What does it mean to design with intention and alignment? Because you did mention how you're being intentional now about refocusing on falling in love with the process. So how what does that look like for you? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think one, I wanna say that maybe, people will interpret that differently for them.
Mhm.
But for me, it's as I mentioned before, like considering the story that you're telling, considering who you're representing when you're telling that story, and their voice, and it not just being, okay, I think this group of people might like this, or I think this
Mhm.
group of people might need this, and this might be a solution for them, but really taking the time to talk with them, have those conversations, and not just putting together something because it looks, well put together, but really thinking about, okay, how is this going to impact the audience that it's, that's going to engage with this work, whether it be different age groups and how they navigate things, and interpret, websites and UI UX design, and how the different messaging and overall just all the visual elements instead of it just being okay, this looks nice and
Yeah.
this is going to get us awards. Like, what's the intention, and how
Mhm.
can we again create this like human centered approach to what we're creating? Yeah.
Okay. So let's jump into the career path. So you
Mhm.
moved between freelance and in-house roles while also building your own design, I would say design house. So let's talk about the hustle of the career. Like what does a
Yeah.
typical day look like for you?
Yeah. So, I will say I recently, I was back full time. And then I, recently realized that I needed to maybe depart from that and go back freelance. So, it's definitely a good balance of trying my best, despite all the brain fog, to stay organized, and to really kind of carve out time to
Mhm.
work, whether that be before I'm starting full time or freelance work, like carving out that time
Mhm.
to work. Especially when I was freelance, I was waking up much earlier, working on my shop stuff, scheduling things out. And then maybe if I didn't get a chance to work that morning, I was working, after work, or I would take my lunch break and send out emails and make sure
Mhm.
my scheduled posts were working, or sketching out new ideas. And so that's kind of how I've been able to balance my shop. Also, always working on the weekends. I definitely tend to just keep going, and
Mhm.
when especially when the flow is there,
Yeah.
I can work all night into the wee hours. But then really balancing with freelance, it's given me the flexibility to set my schedule
Mhm.
of having Mondays of admin days where I'm not necessarily meeting deadlines and things
Right.
like that, but I'm taking care handling, emails and other, kind of more admin roles and tasks.
Mhm.
And then I'm able to set aside time to maybe work on some personal projects or work on projects,
Yeah.
and then really scheduling out my week.
Mhm.
And I'm also and getting back, I'll be getting back to that, but taking maybe a Friday, I was doing the artist way for a little
Mhm.
bit. I had to jump back into that, but it allowed me to set time on Fridays to go and explore, whether it be
Mm.
the museum or bookstore, or just getting out of the house and not
Uh-huh.
just spending kind of a whole week depleting my creative wheelhouse
Yeah.
creating things.
Yeah.
And so that's been really helpful of balancing that, and then just setting the pace of my different projects that I'm working on, and also doing my best, which I admit I'm not necessarily perfect at it, but setting the communication with the clients,
Mhm.
you know, of deadlines and things like that, and making sure I'm pacing things out to give myself enough time for that balance. And so some days I'm, waking up much earlier. Some days I'm working much later. And so yeah, just varies
Mm.
on the flow of the day, and yeah.
So how do you manage all this? Like, how do you manage, oh, I guess, avoiding burnout, balancing social life, creative
Mhm.
life, work? Like, how are you managing this? Do you got an AI assistant or something? Like, how is this working for you?
I am the AI assistant. No, I'm joking. I don't have an AI assistant. I would love for my career to really grow and being
Mhm.
really intentional about this year. I think now that I've accepted that I'm a neurospicy girl now. I can really, hopefully just really grow so that I can bring on more help and assistance. But I'm managing all the things from email and outreach to, doing the work, managing the projects. And I think with like going back to yearbook, I really enjoyed diving into all of those
Mhm.
different things and wearing all those different hats. When I first graduated undergrad, I did work as an administrative assistant. And so I kind of am used to wearing all those different hats and scheduling things. So yeah, it's just a little bit of a balance, and again, balance chaos of that and just setting time. Sometimes, most times, I'm getting ideas that really spark, and I'm like, okay, I need to get this on
Mhm.
paper or get this sketched out, and then I go for it. And then I may continue that day working on that and carving out that time, or I may just put a placeholder for that so that I can work
Mhm.
on the other things that I already have scheduled. But most times, yeah, those, whether it be in the shower, just getting ready
Yeah.
for my day, or going for a walk, or in the car, those creative, I'm getting like these creative downloads, if you will,
Mhm.
of ideas. And I feel the more that I'm creating, the more that I'm trusting my creative voice, the
Mhm.
more I'm hearing all of these ideas. So I also have like a ton of I have notes
Yeah.
ad that has just a list of running ideas that I want to go for,
Mm.
projects and collaborations that I'd like to try and connect with. And really also I like to work on projects that are true to
Mm.
who I am, and kind of the goals that I have of amplifying and working with my community when it comes to the media space. And so it makes selecting projects or reaching out for projects a little easier of,
Mhm.
trusting that there's some alignment. And sometimes it might, things work and the project goes well, but then,
Mm.
there's always things to learn, and you realize, okay, maybe this, I can do
Gotcha.
things
Yeah.
differently here. So always making space to kind of learn from all of the different hats that I'm wearing, of like taking time to say, okay, this can be improved. I'm constantly analyzing maybe a little bit too much
Mhm.
myself in the ways that I can work more efficiently and more effectively. So I probably need to put that AI assistant on my list. Yeah, get some more things seen on. I'm still easing my way into
Mhm.
AI that as a
Mhm.
source, but yeah.
Okay, so what advice would you give to a creative like that's struggling to stay motivated or even organized or
Mhm.
helping them avoid burnout? So what advice would you have for anyone in that position?
Yeah, I would say number one, trusting your creativity and your creative voice.
Mhm.
That's something that I think can get very lost as we're trying to get inspired, and maybe we're looking at other people's work and we're, doing a lot of the comparisons. And also when you're in different work environments, is something that I've experienced is sometimes people want us to be as they call it, pixel pushers, and
Mm.
they want you to kind of, sometimes your creativity feels a little bit silenced when you're working in a corporate space. And so I want to encourage people to really trust their creative voice,
Mhm.
despite where someone else might be leading you or guiding you. Speak up for your creativity and your work,
Yes.
and have the confidence, especially as creators of color. I
Mhm.
think not only are we not lended the same space to explore and to just create, but
Mhm.
sometimes we don't have access to the same opportunities. And so that's also, I wouldn't say hindering, but that's
Mhm.
also impacting our confidence in our work. And so,
Mhm.
if it's hard for us to get interviews, it's hard for us to get in these, challenging for us to get in these spaces sometimes. And then when we get there, you're faced with your voice or feeling like your creativity isn't good
Yeah.
enough, or things like that. So I just hope that we can continue to trust our creative voice. As far as organization, I will say up until my breast cancer diagnosis, I might have been on the atypical side, and so I've always taken lots of notes and been able to manage things
Mhm.
here. And I'm also a planner naturally. And so I think there might be tools, if you aren't a planner naturally, that you can use, especially with AI.
Mhm.
Chat GPT seems to be helping people out with a lot of different things in their life. If you are into AI and
Mhm.
using some of these different tools, also having friends hold you accountable. I think
Yep.
if you can do that, accountability partners, and supporting each other in that way, and community, I think that also helps to feel confidence. And burnout, I think definitely recognizing it. It took me so long as someone who does a lot of things to realize when I was truly burnt out and kind of approaching that space of being burnt out.
Mhm.
Finding things that you love, maybe getting back in touch with like your inner child and things that brought you joy as a child, whether it be something as simple as coloring or, you know, going to play a sport that you once loved, and not
Mhm.
doing it to be, a professional athlete, but just doing it
Yeah.
to bring focus
Yeah.
on it. I think that definitely helps with burnout. I enjoy bookstores and museums and also spending time with family. So that's a way for me to kind of just kind of get some, I can't think of a good word now, but to just kind of simmer down.
Yeah. That calm come over you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, again.
Yeah.
And taking rest and breaks. It's okay to do that. I think
Mhm.
that we feel we can't do that. Sometimes you might need to take that PTO and do nothing, or you might need to take that PTO and go to another city or another state or another
Yeah.
country just for a little time if you can. So yeah.
I am a walks, bookstore, museum, Lego guy. That is where
Yeah.
that's where I find like I don't have to think. I am just free. I'm disconnected from the digital. So that helps me with when I'm feeling like, "Whoo, this is getting a little bit too much. All right, let me go
Yeah.
find something else to do."
Yeah.
So I totally get that. So
Yeah.
I want to shift to the work you're creating with your
Mhm.
design house because it feels like, honestly, it feels like a love letter to culture and Black joy. So
Oh.
share with us, first off, how did the name alone and how did you come up with this?
Yeah. So we'll start with the name. Again, back to me being a 90s baby. I remember at one point I was, you're just in love with hip hop. It's a
Mhm.
part of our culture and you're exposed to it. And so one day I was writing raps, wanting to be like Little Kim. And my mom had Little Kim CDs of Foxy Brown, all of these
Yeah.
things. And then I also grew up in a time where we had like Ben Trill and all of these different streetwear
Mhm.
fashion brands that were just kind of speaking to the confidence and even hip hop. Like a lot of MC's names is speaking to kind of the confidence that they have in
Yeah.
themselves. And so I was honestly thinking about an Instagram name that could really express kind of that confidence and that swag, and then also like catch people's eye. And also touching on being a digital designer and illustrator. So Digitrillnana was birthed from that. Inspired by Foxy Brown, Il Nana. Not necessarily the messaging of the song
Yeah.
or the storytelling in the song, but just the overall confidence and empowerment and women empowerment that you get from listening to that song. And so just again, combining all of these things that I'm constantly inspired by and also was constantly consuming. I came up with that name and then as far as stationery and my love for that, MICA again opened another door and unlocked another
Mhm.
component in my brain of what was accessible for artists and designers. And so they have an art market every year where students can participate in and you can sell your artwork. A lot of the illustrators in the illustration program, they were always selling and creating all these different things. And so it exposed me to that. And I did like a Solange illustration
Mhm.
and I sold my work there and did like a couple stickers. And I was like, oh, wait, this is an avenue that I can
Mhm.
pursue that's bringing me joy to create in such a free way, and it continues to bring me, I think, a lot of creative freedom,
Mhm.
that I don't always get from various projects. And then also wanting to again this idea of representation and art being accessible to people in everyday aspects. And
Mhm.
obviously fine art is so much skill and time
Yeah.
and artistry goes into that. But then I was thinking, that might not be accessible to everyone. And art prints has been such a great way to have your art in someone's home. And an everyday person. Of
Mhm.
course, accessibility, finances, that's a whole nother thing. And that doesn't no one can fit, that's a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
And that note that, even though I want my shop to remain affordable, affordability means something different for everyone.
Mhm.
But thinking about accessibility, and it really started at the art prints and stickers,
Mhm.
and then I was like, "Wait, I really love greeting cards." As a kid, my family, especially my father, has always been super intentional about getting me these beautiful cards, and I've always collected them and kept them. And so I was like, "Wait, like I'm always going in stores like Paper Source and all of these
Mhm.
different creative gift shops and looking at this stuff and exploring again, illustration and design. I was like, wait, I can also do this too. Like it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be art print. And again, unlocking those different avenues of what's available to you and your exposure to these different things. And wanting to create again at a certain time period in time now, a lot of things have changed. But there were, specific messaging that were on cards that didn't necessarily speak to everyone.
Mhm.
As people of color, we have so much color in how we talk, how we share stories, how we come together as community. And so being able to use my cards as a way to continue that communal
Yeah.
exchange, and also wanting to just brighten people's day
Yeah.
and make
That's
people
dope.
happy. I initially thought I was going to be a doctor at the beginning of my life, and because I wanted to help people.
Mhm.
But I've learned through that design can do the same thing, and I've allowed my greeting cards to also be an extension of that. I mean,
Mm.
the reactions that I get from people when they're connected to so many different things
Mhm.
is so rewarding, and it brings so much joy. So yeah, it's been I'm exploring so many different products now.
Yeah.
I have like a phone case. I'll show you that I recently did.
Nice.
Yeah, it's my one of my art prints, but trying that. I have journals and notepads.
Mhm.
And, as a designer, inspired by print publications, I have a love, for just the tangible impact that paper has
Yeah.
and writing things down and journaling. And I had diaries as a kid. One had like a lock on it. You had to do a little password.
Yeah.
So all of these different ways that
Yeah.
childhood has introduced me to these different forms has allowed me to really say, okay, like this is something that really brings me joy. And I can use my art to bring other people joy in their home and encourage them to express themselves, to
That's
stand
dope.
up for themselves,
Yep.
to show up as their best self and whatever that looks like for them. So yeah, that's kind of how all that came together.
Just curious, how do you decide what goes into your shop? And like, how do you, because I've seen it, you're sharing about like, how do you know creatively, like, okay, I'm going to drop this versus like, this has been selling well, but I want to drop something else on top, like something new. So I want to take it off. Like, how do you manage that? How do you know like what goes into your shop and what decides to go and what stays?
Yeah. I will say again, it's been a trust of like my creative voice,
Hmm.
this and just that creative freedom. Most times I'm just exploring different things that I want to create and I put it out there and
Hmm.
people it resonates with people. And so some of it are, things that are happening in my everyday life. And I'm like, wait, this will be perfect for a greeting card. Or, like I have
Yeah.
one that says like small wins, big wins, a win is a win for a
Yeah.
greeting card. And as you're navigating different life moments, like sometimes you need that encouragement, you need
Hmm.
those affirmations to get you to keep going. And so a lot of it sparks there of like, yeah, I needed this in this moment, and I want to share this with other people in case they need it too.
Hmm.
Some of it is like, very relatable things. Some of it is, a lot of it is inspired by pop culture and music,
Hmm.
and the impact that that's had on my life. And so I'm just pulling from these different things. And like I said, once I get in a flow, that it's
Hmm.
just like, oh, this would be really cool. Oh, you should try this. And these are all coming to me. And I'm honoring that, whether I'm writing it down, saving it for later to explore. And some things when you think about like the commercialization of
Yeah.
products, you want to of course, check the market to see
Hmm.
what's out there. I like to make sure that I'm not mimicking work that is already out there.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes your creative ideas are true to you, and only you can make it look
Hmm.
like your style and your work.
Yeah.
And so, that's okay too. But really, checking out the market. I haven't gotten to a place where I'm necessarily testing products, but I
Hmm.
will say that most of the things that I create have been super relatable, and keeping that in mind with my storytelling and just overall messaging. A lot of times I'm churning, okay, how would this sound?
Hmm.
How do these different messages sound for cards
Hmm.
and things? Like fine tuning that. And some
Hmm.
stuff like I've worked on and it's not a hit at all, and that's okay. And some things I'm like, oh, this is, yes, this came together
Yeah.
very well. Especially when you're thinking about like greeting cards, especially you want them to be kind of as inviting to all people as
Hmm.
possible. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, no, this I'm creating this strictly for a certain with certain, certain demographic in
Hmm.
mind or certain. And so it's just a balance of that of like, okay, is this, general enough that it can reach, every person that's going to come into this shop, or this store. Because that's also important too. You think about the store and you want them to succeed in sales and also for people to connect with the work. So it's a big balance of me trusting my artistic voice and then also kind of taking that understanding of the marketing side of how this can kind of come together, and also the collaboration between my work and other
Yeah.
stores and shops. Like, how can my work really bring their story? And also, I'm very intentional about the shops that I do connect and partner with.
Hmm.
And so, making sure that alignment is there as well is really important. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that because it's just like you have so many dope things on there. I'm like, how does she know what to keep and what to take away? Because it's just like all of this, I think, fits. Like, if you understand the culture, you understand the
Yeah.
community, you can be like, "Oh, there's a perfect I know a person that would love that." So that's why I was just very much curious on, like, how do you decide what stays and what goes?
Mhm.
So, let's talk a little bit about design culture. What does
Mhm.
it mean to find or create community within this space?
Yeah, I think so. I will say I am a very introverted person, but
Mhm,
at my core, community is like at my core. I love creating
mhm,
safe spaces for people, or just spaces for people to commune. I think growing up with the family that I had with my grandmother and mother and aunt, and
mhm,
they're always, they're just creating space for people to be and exist and show
mhm,
up. So I think it's so important, especially as people of color, as we're navigating the design industry. I mean, there's so many resources. I think a prime example is TikTok. Like you look at that, it's grown into a whole community of people sharing, and there's,
mhm,
of course, pros and cons to some of the content that's being shared, but people are able to really show up as their true
mhm.
selves in these spaces, and share resources
Yeah,
and share their skill set, and
yeah.
share their experiences. And, I've had different conversations with different people, and it's made so many things make sense or make me say, "Oh, I do feel reassured in what I'm feeling in this
Mhm,
workplace, and I can stand up for myself, or I can approach this problem that I'm experiencing in a different way or a new way, or having a new perspective on it."
mhm,
So I think community, like, you don't get that anywhere else but community.
mhm.
I can't show enough gratitude for my design friends and my non-design friends and my family that, I share my work with, because that's also so sacred of sharing your work with people and getting feedback,
Mhm.
that can really help you grow and amplify your work. And just having them to be kind of that community, and
Yeah.
me as well for them, of encouraging them in whatever endeavors they have.
Mhm.
It's so important. Yeah. Yeah.
So what was the role for in your community that helped you grow? Was it more of a support role, like cheerleader, uh, kind of like a sounding board where you can bounce ideas off? Like, what role did your community play in your growth as a designer?
Yeah, I think they've played all of the above. I have, some people, like some groups of friends where we're
Mhm,
just like we're constantly encouraging each other, and
mhm,
then some groups where we're sharing. Even like my Instagram, sometimes I put creative ideas up there of like,
mhm.
how do you guys feel about the thing that I'm working on, and getting that feedback. And I think it's important as a designer, you have to be comfortable with sharing your
Yeah.
work and things. That's just inevitable, but,
Mhm,
I think it's important for us to hear from our peers, especially because we understand the process, we
mhm.
understand the things that go into creating, and sometimes you can get feedback. Not all feedback is good feedback to
Mhm.
kind of decipher and pour in. Some things you really have to filter through to kinda get to the core.
Yeah.
And so having your design friends to help you decipher, maybe you're getting feedback from a client or a coworker. You're like, hey, I don't really quite understand what they mean by this. Like, how can I navigate this?
Yeah.
Having that community, and I love supporting. I love showing up for my friends and encouraging them to keep
Mhm.
going. So I think it's so important for us to have that. Also, I know I wanted to shout out Black Designers Ignite and Heather. She did such an amazing job, and I think they do such an amazing job of putting together the team that they did. The speaking event that I participated in was, I think it was 2020 or 2021, right in the peak of COVID.
Mhm.
But it's so pivotal for having support. Everyone showing up, and I shared like a thesis concept, so it wasn't necessarily brought to life, but being able to have that support and speaking and resources and having people
Mhm.
listen was so important, and being compensated for that explorative work, and
Mhm.
for you sharing your story or your
Mhm.
project. And we had such a variety of designers that spoke, which I think is really, really important to just welcome in all of these different diverse perspectives. So yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely think it's so important, especially when we're in an industry that can be a little, exclusive and this whole thing of good designer versus bad designer. Yeah, I think it's so important.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said, like, you know, the industry and how it's up and down. It can go good and bad. What changes would you love to see from the design industry that could help better serve Black creatives?
Yeah. I would love to see more mentorship opportunities when whether you're no matter what phase of your career you're in. Like I think it's so important. Like I had kind of touched on earlier, most times for me at least, I can't tell you how many jobs I've applied for and just never got even an interview for.
Mhm,
And I think there was I don't remember the creator's name, but she did an experiment on LinkedIn where
mhm,
she changed her profile to I think it was like a white woman that she changed her profile to,
mhm,
and she had so many responses to interviews. And prior to that, showing up as her regular self,
mhm,
she wasn't, hearing anything back. And so I think, we are having a challenging time finding these opportunities. Then when we get in these opportunities, because sorry, I'm doing the brain fog thing.
Nah, take your time. You're
Because we don't have as many.
Mhm,
I don't want to say we don't have because I think that we do and we should, and I hope that that's the future
mhm,
of our experience as designers. But you can't lie and say that all the doors are always open for us. And so because it can be so challenging for us to find employment to get our foot in the door, when
mhm,
we do finally get there, we're there, but we don't necessarily know how to navigate
mhm,
these different experiences, whether it be corporate jargon or corporate, these different facades that the corporate world brings along. And so we need someone to help guide us. We need
mhm,
someone that we can trust because I think that's the thing too. Like having mentors and people that you can trust and that also instill confidence in you and help you to show up as yourself and give you access. Like we
yeah,
deserve access to these spaces, whether we're a good designer or a bad designer. Like we all deserve access
mhm,
to these things. And I think I've shared throughout this conversation of different experiences and access to different things have opened my eyes to what's possible for my career.
mhm,
And so it's so important in gatekeeping and upholding that whole narrative of good design versus bad design. Like that's one point. And then
mhm,
I definitely want to see designers as a whole when it comes to us, especially in corporate spaces. I want
mhm,
us to be treated as like key stakeholders as well.
mhm,
I don't want us to keep continuing to be treated as like pixel pushers and just putting, making the thing pretty or putting the idea together. Like I want us to really be considered in the collaborative process, especially when we're working with our marketing teams and
mhm,
however teams are assimilated. It's so important. We're creative beings,
mhm,
and we're working with so many great ideas and things, and one too many hindrances in the industry can really make or break how you show up. And I just want us to kind of have that and being okay to slow down too as well.
yeah,
Like,
most definitely.
I think it's okay for us to slow down just a tad. So yeah, those are kind of some of my key shifts that I'd like to see. Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a little fun right now. Now we're going to come to this quick fire questions. Just say whatever
Alright.
comes to mind. All right.
Okay.
So, first one, everybody's favorite dream collaboration, dead or alive.
Okay, so this is a tough one because I have so many dream collabs, so I'm just gonna share them in hopes that this will manifest into something. So
Let's
that was
go.
a tour. She taught me so much, and I've learned so much from her literature and from her words. Carrie Mae Weems and Hank Willis Thomas. They're of course photographers. And Tyler Mitchell. Their work is so phenomenal. I would love in some way to collab with them. And then on the more, like, work side,
Mhm.
so Hooray Media, I love what they're doing, showing up blackity blackity black, Issa Rae and her team,
Yeah.
Solange
Dope.
Knowles, I think she's a good example of being able to merge all these different creativity pieces of her and showcasing that. And then Adobe and Casetify. So
Mhm.
those are all my dream collabs.
All right. Dope.
Yes,
Got it out
yes,
there, so it's out in the universe. Let's make this happen. All right.
yes,
Next one.
yes.
One word to describe your design style.
Ooh, oh, that's a tough one. One word, one word. Oh boy. I want to say bold. I feel like that's so cliche, but I think it's definitely bold. I think it's like, and I'll just say bold slash like the audacity
Mhm,
to explore, to bring this color, to try these different and bringing these different textures and elements together.
mhm.
Um, yeah.
Okay. Album you play when you're in that deep creative zone.
Okay. Woo, woo, woo. So I have a whole creative playlist. I'm
Okay.
gonna share like my top right now. So I've
Okay.
been diving back into like jazz. So I've been listening to the Blackbirds. They are a jazz slash R&B fusion band from the 70s.
Mhm,
They're actually from Washington D.C. So yeah, I'll have to put them at my top. When I'm in my flow, Emancipation of Mimi by Mariah Carey. That is a nonstop hype.
Yeah.
Um,
Dope.
and when I'm feeling a little, need to lock in, I might listen to like Gunna. I really think that his music and the production is kind of just like it's
Mhm,
definitely fitting like a fusion of jazz, hip hop,
mhm.
trap, like all those things. So yeah.
Okay. Go to self-care move after a tough creative day. We all have hit these.
Yes. If it's not a nap, then I'm going to the bookstore.
Easy. Naps can make I don't understand why kids fight them. As an adult, we crave
Yeah.
we I was like, "Man, they need to bring back naps in school because I would
Yes.
surely take one when everybody else does." It
Yes.
resets everything. Like, you almost
Resets
forget it.
everything.
You almost forget, like,
Yeah.
"Dang, I forgot I had to do that. Oh, well. It's a nap."
Right. And you recharge. Yeah. And then you wake up from your nap. It might what you were struggling with might come
Comes
to
to
you right
yep.
away
Mhm,
or like later on down the line. At least that's happened for me. So
mhm.
yeah.
Okay,
Naps and yeah.
okay. Favorite tool in your creative arsenal right now?
Okay, I have to give it up to Procreate. I have been able most of my illustrations for my art shop are created with Procreate.
Mhm,
And I don't know, it's really boosted my confidence. So I have to give it up to Procreate.
hmm.
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah.
Alright. Well, Ash, before we wrap, I want to touch on legacy, manifestation, and what's next. So,
Mhm.
what are you manifesting right now, whether creatively or personally?
Yeah. So again, I'm gonna shout out Adobe. I would love to collab with them. They have a Create Now series. I
Mhm,
believe they're doing one in DC in May. And I've been wanting to just really connect again in person with people. I think as a freelancer, I'm kind of always either
mhm,
in my studio or at a cafe, but really being able to connect.
mhm,
And then also, I would really love to start doing puzzles. So,
mm,
there's a company called Jiggy Puzzles that I'd love to collaborate with in the future. Chronicle Books, back into my, traditional publication bag. They also create some of like my favorite like notebooks and kind of guided
mhm,
journals and covers. So definitely them. Let's see. And also manifesting some angel funding for my business, my art
mhm.
shop. Greeting cards and stationery have brought me so much joy and creative freedom. And I'm just hoping that I can continue to grow
Yes,
that collection. Serena
yes.
Williams, if you're listening to this, I know you do some angel funding. I would love to connect.
I can shoot this
um,
to him. It doesn't it
yes,
won't hurt. It will not hurt.
yes. I would love that. And then also getting in, hopefully over 50 stores
Mm.
for my art. Yeah, there's much more conversation that can be had offline about growing your stationery
Mhm.
shop and getting things out there. And so I would love to have my art reach more people. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
So what would you tell your younger self now?
Mm,
Now that you've gone through life, life has lifed you, you have your ebbs and flows. What would you tell your
yeah.
younger self in college right now?
I would tell my younger self, one. like not to dim my light for anyone or anything and to really show up. Again, as an introvert, I'm a little shy and
Mhm.
it's so easy for me to kind of fall back into that introvertedness.
Mhm.
But in a lot of spaces, I've shown up authentically as myself and I really shine. And so building that confidence early on, I think is a game changer and continue to take those bold leaps. Like that
Mhm.
one change in my major of going for something that I was unsure of, but really wanted to explore has been a continuing theme in my career. Yeah.
Okay, last one. What does the next chapter look like for you and your creative journey?
Yes, that is a good one. Also, I don't know if I said this when we started, but I really appreciate all of your questions. These have been so amazing and thoughtful. And yeah, I'm so grateful for this conversation. I really want to find that balance between research, exploration, and like a design art practice.
Mhm.
I'm still exploring what that looks like, but I think exploring other mediums like ceramics, going back into photography and building those things, I think are so important. So I'd really love to do more of that more funding to have that creative exploration and travel
Mhm.
and seeing and experiencing different things that can also shape my creativity.
Mhm.
Um, and then being more intentionally in community with other artists is something that I'd like to do a lot
Mhm.
more, outside of, like, just online. And then, let's see, what else do I wanna see? Definitely more mentorship on my end for other creatives.
Mhm.
I've taught a few, youth programs, and so
Mhm.
finding a way to connect
Mhm.
and provide more mentorship to, like, aspiring designers.
Mhm.
That's definitely some things that I see in my future, in my next 5 years, my shop being much larger, than it is now and being able to create all these
Mhm.
different things that connect with people, and not just for the sake of, like, creating product, but to be able to really connect and provide people with
Mhm.
tools that, or products that they love and can express themselves. Yeah, that's where I hopefully see myself. I definitely wanna get into more fine art mediums. I think my grandfather, and his art has really called me, and after his passing has really called me to kinda, "Hey, go
Yeah.
for it, girl.
Yeah.
Go canvas out and do something." So yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I'm looking forward to in the next 5 years.
Okay. Well, Ashley,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us on my podcast today. I mean, you dropped so many gems. You gave us so much wisdom, from surviving and thriving to finding balance, purpose, and still incorporating a powerful story. It's all been just so inspiring. So, where can people find you and your work?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for listening to this episode. You can find me online, on social media at Digitrillnana or just Digitrillnana, Digitrrillnana. That's me on Instagram and TikTok. I make a lot of cool TikToks now. Very fun. But you can also find me online at my website at Ashley-Fletcher.com.
Mhm.
I'm on LinkedIn, of course, at Ashley Fletcher if you'd like to connect professionally. Yeah, that's where I am. And I look forward to connecting with you all in your community, Justin. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Art School Graduate Podcast. We'll catch y'all later. Peace.